guys and welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to talk to you about all of the books that I read for my English literature degree. If you are new around here, my name is Katie and I graduated last year from Cardiff Uni in English and philosophy. Because I was drawing honours, that means that half of my course was English, so I didn't read as many books as my other friends in English, but I still read a lot. And I've literally got them all laid out in front of me here. And this isn't even all of them because some of my books are at my grandparents'. My grandparents live quite close to Cardiff, so I stored a lot of my stuff in their loft like in between years, and due to like COVID a lot of my stuff is still at their house. So I've got the majority of my books, but there's a few that I'm missing, but there's a lot of books, so I think we should just get into it. So I've organised this by first, second and third year, so you can kind of see what kind of books you might read in your first year at uni, and then going on to second and third year modules are more modules that you pick yourself, so they're a bit more like reflective of what I'm interested in. But let's get started with first year. So first year I did 3 English modules. I did critical reading and writing, which was just kind of a general introduction to English literature at degree level. Then I did Star-Crossed Lovers, which was loads of texts that are basically like Romeo and Juliet, those kind of ones. And then Authoring the Self, which I believe was about like Victorian era? I think it was about Victorian era. I actually don't have that many of my first year books because those are the ones that are at my grandparents', but I've got my favourites. And like classics. So the first book for first year was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is a classic and you can see it is quite a beefy book. I'm sure we all know about Pride and Prejudice. I had read it previously and not enjoyed it that much, but reading it a second time and at the age of like 19 instead of, I don't know, maybe it was like 16 or 17 when I first read it, I enjoyed it so much more, and I do really like the story. I believe I actually wrote on this as well. You can see that I've got like yellow highlighted throughout it, and that's what I tend to do with my study English books. I go through and I read them and I highlight bits throughout. So that's the first book. The next book is another classic, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. As you can see, my copy is a little bit battered because this was the second time I'd studied this. I also studied it at A level. So I've read it twice, and this has notes in the margins from both A level and uni, as well as highlighting. Honestly, it was so helpful when you've previously studied a book. When you go back over it at uni, I feel like it's just, you learn so much more, but also your previous knowledge from A level or GCSE just really helps like bolster what you know about the book, because obviously English you have to read a lot of books. If you were doing 3 modules in one semester, you may have 3 books to read a week, so it's a lot of reading. The next book is another classic, and that's David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. As you can see, this is a hefty book, and this might be the fattest book I own. And the writing inside is tiny. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I read this, because this, for first year, scared me. So I actually watched the film instead, and I didn't write on this. I mean, I do recommend reading the books, but this is like 700 and something pages and it just overwhelmed me at the time. I don't think many of my friends read it either. I'm sure at some point I'll get around to reading it because I own it, but for now this is just sitting on my shelf as a classic. The next book, or play I should say, is The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare, and this is just a short little play. Really quick. I probably read this in like an hour and a half. So I really like doing modules that are either poetry or plays because they're so much quicker to get through than books. But yeah, another classic. All of Shakespeare is a classic. The next book I read in first year was Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I actually wrote one of my essays on this, and I remember sitting on the coach from Cardiff back to London during reading week, reading this and writing about this on my laptop whilst I was travelling. I like to be productive, so it was a good use of time. Obviously after first year I took my car to uni because I could, and then I kind of lost that like 3-hour journey to be productive, but yeah, wrote on this on a coach from Cardiff to London. The next book is possibly the biggest classic of all time, and it is Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. As you can see, this book is well loved. We have so many tabs in this because I have studied this maybe 3 times now, and I love it. It's my favourite Shakespeare. I've said it on my channel before. Romeo and Juliet is my favourite Shakespeare. I think I have 3 different copies of this. I've got another one that was like my GCSE text copy, but that was like an A4 size, so I wanted a smaller one when I went to uni, so that's what this one is. Again, I wrote an essay on this because I can't not write on Shakespeare. Well, I can't not write on Romeo and Juliet if I'm given the choice. The next book was for first year, but I also went on study abroad to LA and I had to read quite a big extract of this text for one of my modules there as well. My English module there wasn't really like read this book. It was more like read this extract from this book every week, so I haven't included anything from there, but I did read some of this book for that as well, and that is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This book doesn't look like it's been loved because I have, again, multiple copies of this. I've never read it start to finish, but I'm pretty sure that all of the different extracts I've read for both Cardiff and LMU means that I've read it start to finish, just not in one sitting. Again, this is a classic. I don't enjoy this book that much, but I really like the cover of this particular edition. The next book for first year was Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. Again, this is one that didn't really interest me. You see a running theme that I didn't read a lot of the books in first year, I watched the films instead. Once we got on to second year, I did read all of my books. I was a lot more organised, and I actually have a video on my channel telling you how to get through your uni reading, and I'll link it down below. I also have a video telling you how I read 50 books in 6 months last year, so that's another one that you may want to check out, but yeah, can't tell you that much about this one because I didn't read it. The next one was linked to the last one, and it's Foe by J.M. Coetzee. Again, and this is kind of about Robinson Crusoe. This is actually a really big text in here. At some point I am going to read these books because my mission this year is like not buy any more books and to just read what I already own. So these at some point will get read. Can't tell you when, but at some point. And then the final book I have to show you from first year is by Oscar Wilde, and it's De Profundis and the Other Prison Writings, and we read De Profundis. I bought this and then I think we were given like printouts of the text anyway, so I don't think I needed to buy it. So again, this book doesn't look that well loved, but I probably will read all of this at some point. But yeah, I read the other bit as like an extract. Do you like my new mug? Ella got it for me for my birthday and I love it. It's my new favourite mug. Oh, let's not spill any tea. Moving on to second year books, I did again 3 English modules. I did romantic poetry and contemporary poetry, and then also a module called Girls, which was about how women and girls were portrayed in the media. So let's get through those books now. So I'm first going to go through the romantic poetry books, and I had 3 different romantic poetry books for this. I had Penguin Classics English Romantic Verse. So again, we just read different works of like Blake, and I'm trying to remember exactly who we read. William Cowper. I'm trying to figure out who we actually read because I did another romantic module. Oh, Coleridge as well. Basically I did 2 romantic modules. This is the first one. That's one book from that. Another book was The Uses of Enchantment by Bruno Bettelheim. Thinking about it, I actually think this might have been part of first year. I'm not entirely sure. I think again we were just given extracts from this book. I bought it second hand on Amazon, but the next one is possibly the heaviest book that I had to read, and the most expensive book that I bought for uni, except for the ones that I had at LMU, which were $70 each, despite the fact that they were only on loan. They were even more expensive to buy, and I didn't want to lug them back because they were heavy. But this is my heaviest one from Cardiff, and it is the Edited by Duncan Wu Romanticism and Anthology, the 4th edition. I'm going to hazard a guess that this contains every single poem ever written in the Romantic era. But it basically has like sections on each of the different poets, and it has like information on them and their kind of history, and then it goes into all of their poems. So this, if you're interested in romantic poetry and want a big text that has everything you'll ever need in, this is your answer. I used this in both my second and third year romantic poetry modules, and it was basically the only book I needed. Quite often I would end up printing off the poems anyway to annotate them. It's got glue on it. Just because this is so huge, and also it's just so, the pages are like glossy and it's nice, and I didn't want to write in it or highlight in it, so I did print off poems. But yeah, would recommend if you're interested in romantic poetry. I'm going to put this down now before I die. So the next book in second year is The Accidental by Ali Smith. This followed a family where basically this random woman shows up at their holiday home that they rented for the summer, and she just kind of inserts herself into their life. Not that much happened in this book, whilst a lot happened at the same time. I didn't really like it, but it's the prettiest book cover I own. I absolutely love this book cover. The next book was for my contemporary poetry module, and it is the Blood Axe book of 20th century poetry, edited by Edna Longley. Again, this was just an anthology that had the books, the poems that we needed to learn in it. Again, our lecturers had a big habit of telling us to go and buy books, and then they'd provide us with the poems anyway, so this didn't get that much love just because I was given the poems anyway. The next book got a little bit more love, and that was the vintage book of contemporary American poetry. This one I did actually use, and as you can see I've tabbed up some of the poems. I think these are the ones that I might have used in my essay. Yeah, the ones I used in my essay. Again, this was just like American poets, so it has like Robert Creeley and Sexton. Again, it just has like a little introduction to each of the poets, tiny introduction, and then some of their poems. I also really like the cover of this book. I've never really been able to figure out what it is, but I like the cover of it. And the next book is a graphic novel that was in my girls module, and it is Persepolis, The Story of a Childhood and the Story of Return by Marjane Satrapi. This basically follows a girl who is a refugee from Iran, and it begins while she's in Iran and then coming over to England. And yeah, it's a graphic novel. I'm not the biggest fan of graphic novels. I actually would have preferred this book to be like written out. I think it would have engaged me more, but I know that loads of people in my module really loved this and really loved graphic novels. I don't think graphic novels click with me, but it is a really good, true story, and it was really interesting to read. I just didn't like the format. This book is from the same module, and that is Grace, Tamar and Laszlo the Beautiful by Deborah K. Davies. Deborah K. Davies actually went to Cardiff Uni, which I think is why she was included in this module, and she actually came and spoke to us, and I've now read 2 of her books, and I don't think they're for me. They're good, but they're not for me, but I found her talk really interesting. I really enjoyed her talk. But yeah, I got it signed whilst she was at the talk. She seemed really nice, and yeah, the book's not aimed at me, it's not my jam, but it is good writing. The next book is possibly my favourite book that I read throughout my whole degree, and it's because it was already one of my faves, and that is Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding. Anyone who knows me knows that Bridget Jones is just my absolute favourite film. Like the first 2, I don't even know how many times I've watched them, so when I got to read the book for uni I was so excited. I'd read the book before when I was a lot younger, so I don't think I appreciated the book that much, but rereading it I loved it, and then I went on to read the other 3 novels in the series, and I absolutely loved them. Next book is Not That Kind of Girl by Lena Dunham. Again, this is Lena Dunham's like story of her childhood and growing up in university, and just her life and work. I personally really like this book. I know a lot of people don't, but I've spoken about it on my channel before, so I'm not going to say too much more. The next book was another graphic novel, so I didn't really click with it again, and that is A Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. Again, graphic novel. I think it's loosely inspired by her. No, it is inspired. It is a memoir, her life. It just wasn't really my thing. Again, I don't really like graphic novels. But again, I like the cover. This next book was on the previous year's reading list for one of the modules I did, and it was taken off mine at the last minute and replaced with something else. and that is Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. As you can see, I didn't realise I found a new bookmark. I'm about halfway through because I'd started reading it before it got taken off the reading list. I found this book really heavy. It was taking me a while to get through. I've put hours into reading this and I'm still not finished. But I haven't picked it up again since second year, so I think I will finish this at some point this year. I think it'll probably go on my list of books I need to finish. The next book is Lara by Bernardina Evaristo, and this is basically a novel in verse, and it's about Bernardina Evaristo's family and family history and her childhood, and it's all kind of intertwined. I like the premise of this book. My camera is flashing. Yeah, I really like the premise of this book, but I really didn't like the execution. I think novels in verse aren't for me, and it's kind of put me off reading her other books because I'm worried that they'll be similar and I just won't enjoy them. And I don't know, everyone's hyped them up so much. Let me know if you've read her other books, if I should be reading them, if I don't like novel in verse and I didn't enjoy this one. But I've never seen anyone else talk about this book, so I'm not sure whether this is just like an odd one in her collection of books and whether I should be reading the other ones and giving them a chance. But this one definitely wasn't for me. I did enjoy like the family history aspect of it, but I just didn't, again, like the execution. The next book, again, I think this might have been taken off my reading list as well, but I'd read it, is Bad Blood by Lorna Sage, and this again was a true story and an autobiography, and I actually can't really remember what happened in it because I read it so long ago. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was taken off my reading list, but by then I'd already read it. So then we're on to third year books. So third year was a little bit different because I did go on study abroad for the first semester. As I said, we didn't really read any full texts in that class, and I don't have the two anthologies that we were using because I borrowed them, rented them for a big sum of money that I should have been able to buy about 15 books with. So I only have two modules, and the first one I showed you the big romantic poetry book, and that is what I worked out for my romantic poetry second generation module. And the other one was Scandal and Outrage, which I've spoken about loads on my channel because I just loved the module. But let's get into the books I read for that. So the first book is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I really enjoyed this book. I hadn't read any of James Baldwin's works before, but I'm definitely going to go and check out some of his other works. I really enjoyed this. I think I read this on my holiday to Budapest, like in the summer. I would really recommend this book. The next book is a classic, and it is Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. I was expecting to love this book and I just didn't. I felt like there was too much like description of the environment and not a lot happened. It is a classic. The next book I read is connected to the last one, and it's The Trial of Lady Chatterley's Lover, which has a very pretty cover. And this was basically a transcript of the trial of when it was basically, they were deciding if it should be published or like allowed for people to read it because it was so scandalous. This is definitely more up my street. I quite like law trial things. The next book was a play, and that was Oleana by David Mamet. This was about, basically it had two characters in, a teacher, like a lecturer, and a student. I really enjoyed this. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I would definitely recommend reading it as a play. If I ever see it come up as like a play in a theatre near me, I'll definitely go and watch it because I've really enjoyed reading it. The next book I read was Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I like this version that I've had it for years. I'm not really a fan. I think the writing's not great in Twilight. I love the films. I've now read the second Twilight, but as an audiobook. I do have the other two, and I probably will read them at some point. Like, I think I'll read another one this year. But yeah, wasn't the biggest fan, but also like, it's kind of cool to be able to say I studied Twilight at university, and I did write my essay on this, and I was told that my research into fan fiction was particularly effective. I screenshotted that, and I looked at it yesterday, and I have that evidence that that was said. The next book I read was another play, and it was The Children's Hour by Lillian Hellman, which isn't all of this. This has I believe, yeah, 6 plays of hers in. Again, I really enjoyed this. It was set in like a boarding school type thing, and it was basically about one of the kids starts a rumour about the teachers, and then bad stuff happens. Another classic, my next book, was The Catcher in the Rye by Jd Salinger. This was the second time I'd read this book. I'd read it once before, so this cover kind of reminds me of Pokemon. Just me. I really like The Catcher in the Rye, and again, I had this book in my essay that I wrote. And then the final book I have to show you from my English literature degree is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I'd wanted to read this for ages because some of the other students in my A-level class read it and did it as part of their coursework, and I did other books, and I just thought it sounded so... Anyway, this, yeah, I wanted to read this for ages, and I really enjoyed it. That was all of the books, or pretty much all of the books that I read for my English literature degree. I hope this was helpful if you're looking into studying English literature and kind of want to know what kind of books you might expect on your course or syllabuses? Syllabi? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it helpful. Let me know what books you've studied for your English literature course, whether it's A-level or university. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!